All right. Hey everyone, how's it going? Jeremy Langlois here, coming to you from Houmas House Estate and Gardens, and so great to have you watching with us today. We always have so much fun doing these videos, and I'm super excited to get cooking today. A couple things before we get started. Always know my friend Jesse's behind the camera, so as we're watching this and you're watching this live with us, hey, hello, how's it going? And at any point you got any questions, please don't hesitate to drop a comment into our the comment area, and we love interacting with y'all. And even if you're watching this after we're live and you're watching this several days from now, leave a comment as well. We're often checking the videos. If you have any questions of anything we do, I'm happy to answer them personally, and as we continue to cook together. Okay, so I love cooking classic Louisiana dishes, and you really don't get much more classic than red beans and rice. If you're in New Orleans and it's a Monday, red beans and rice are a staple. And I got a recipe for you, and we have a couple things to talk about. But honestly, another great thing about red beans and rice is it is insanely easy to cook. However, one thing that red beans and rice does require, though, the only trick to it that makes red beans potentially difficult is it just takes a little bit of attention, and it takes a long time to cook. We're talking 2 to 3 hours of cooking often to prepare red beans and rice. So you do have to babysit it a little bit, but the recipe itself is dead simple. So let's go ahead, get started, and talk about a few things. First thing, red beans and rice, let's start right off the bat with the beans. Of course, we're doing red beans and rice, but this recipe can be adapted to any beans out there. White beans, fantastic. Cannellini beans, fantastic. But we're using red kidney beans. You can buy them off them at the grocery store, dried or canned. For this recipe, we're using dried. That way we can control everything going in the dish. Canned red beans are often pre-done, but and with their own flavors added to it. I prefer starting with dried. But you don't have to do this, but if you look at our recipe, which will be going online and on our website, one thing you'll see that says is if you know you're going to be preparing red beans and rice early, you often want to soak the beans. Well, why do we want to do that? Well, because these beans are dry, they're rock hard at the moment, and we have to cook them until they're creamy and tender. So by soaking the beans, you get a little jump start on breaking down that outer shell of the dried red bean. And so I already soaked these last night in some cold water overnight, but I just want to show you the difference. I literally started with the same package that I got here. So these are the ones I just opened. These are the ones that I soaked last night. Look at the difference. What happens is we're going to put some cool water on it. You want to really cover those beans. You see that I have the beans almost double the amount of water of the beans, because as they start to absorb the water and soak, they're going to get bigger and soak up all that water. So what we want to do is soak our red beans. Now, you don't have to do that, however. Soaking red beans isn't critical. It just greatly reduces the cook time. So if we soak our red beans, we can cook this in about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. If you don't soak your red beans, the cook time is going to be increased to about a 3-hour cook time. So that's the advantage you can get. Don't have to go either way, but soaking your red beans just kind of helps jumpstart the whole thing. With that said though, we got us a nice black iron pot, one of my favorite cookwares to use. I got it on high. I'm gonna put a little oil in the bottom of the pan, and we're gonna get cooking. Now, I'm gonna start off with, very simply, this is just some diced ham. I got some diced ham, that's gonna go in first, and I'm looking to just render it. That means I want to get a little color on the outside, and I want to start to extract some of that flavor. Now, we're going to be adding, I like red beans with a lot of sausage and ham in them, and there's a lot of different areas or different meats that you could use as you cook. These are all things I'm not happen to be throwing in this pot today, but I just wanted to show you an example of other types of meat that you could use. This is some andouille. I got some andouille sausage, which is that great Louisiana smoked sausage that has a lot of great flavor. This is tasso. Tasso is pork shoulder that's been sliced and cured with a lot of spices and smoked. And both of these you could dice both of these up and throw this in place of ham, or you can use ham. You're going to get a great flavor from all these meats that are going to cook for hours with these red beans. You're going to get great flavor, great spice, great smoke. All that is going to come out of the out of the meats and get into your red beans and start to marry with all those flavors. So So we just want to very quickly cook this till you get a little bit of color. And now we're going to go in. I have mixed here. This is chopped onion, celery, and bell pepper. We're going to add a little bit in and get that sauteing. Just looking to cook that fairly quickly. And then we're going to go in with our garlic right after that. I say this a million times, but I always like to let my onions and celery go in first, then add my garlic a minute or so after that goes in, only to garlic can sometimes burn very quickly, so we don't want that. So by adding the the trinity, the onion, celery, bell pepper first, there's a lot of liquid in it, and that's going to actually cool down the pan a little bit so we can add our garlic in right after, and you don't have to worry about it burning. If you have hot oil and you throw garlic directly into it, because it's minced and small, it can often brown on you very quickly if you're not watching it. And once that garlic starts to brown, it becomes bitter, and then we don't want that because that's going to put that kind of burnt, bitter flavor into our dish, and we don't want that. So we got our onion, celery, bell pepper, and ham all kind of cooking together. And now we're going to go in with our soaked red beans. We're going to put those in. And now, straight up water. This is cool water that we're just going to go and we're going to add it in, and we're going to go all the way to the top, and we're going to really cover those red beans that we just put in. I want everyone to look at that and see kind of what we're working with here. And what's going to happen is, as this continues to cook over the next hour or two, it's going to start to, because the red beans are dried, it's going to start to absorb all of this liquid, and it's going to start to become, the stock itself is going to become very creamy. And the beans themselves are going to start to break down, but you want to have a little bit more water than you think. You really want to cover those beans by a good inch higher than what the beans are in your pot, because all of that is just going to cook down over this time. You're going to have, anytime you're cooking and you see steam coming out of a pot, well, that's liquid going out into the air, so it's reducing. And then also the beans are going to absorb a lot of this. Now, I always like to talk about alternatives as we cook. Oh, my vegetarian friends, I do love y'all, but although I would never make vegetarian red beans, 100% you can. You could do this same recipe, just eliminate all the meat. Oh, don't know why you want to, but I love you guys, so you could definitely do that. But you're just going to get so much flavor from that meat. But if you wanted to, this is a point where you could add different broths. You can add chicken stock. You can add, if you're going vegetarian, vegetable stock. But here I'm using water. Why am I doing that as opposed to putting stock in? Well, because I find with this particular recipe, we have so much ham. And now I'm going to go and add some smoked sausage. And look what I do with the sausage, y'all. I take those links of, this is just smoked pork sausage, and I cut them. This is up to you. You can leave them bigger. You could slice them up smaller, like you were making jambalaya. But I like to go with about a 3-inch cut. That way I get some nice big chunky pieces of meat. And I'm going to get this in here. And the reason why I'm using water as opposed to stock is because with this particular recipe, with all these great smoked meats that are in this pot, and it's going to cook for so long, it's actually going to extract so much flavor that I actually think you don't need the chicken stock in it or any kind of stock. But of course, that might add a little bit of flavor. You really can't go wrong. So I'm just going to get in there. And now it's just a matter of, we're going to crank this up to high, and we're going to want this to come up to a simmer. We want this to start getting where it starts to boil just a little bit on top, and you start to get a little bubbles. As soon as that happens, we're going to crank it down to a medium lowish heat. And now it's just honestly a matter of watching this. You want to come back every couple of, not every couple of minutes, but every 10 minutes or so. Walk by your pot. You want to give it a good stir. You want to scrape the bottom. Make sure you don't feel anything sticking there. The main thing that can go wrong cooking red beans, because it's going to cook for so long and those beans start to break down and then settle on the bottom of the pot, is you scorch your beans. And once you scorch your beans, unfortunately, you got to throw the whole thing out because that scorched flavor is going to permeate everything, and it's not going to taste good. But they just have to cook for about 2 hours when they start to get a little bit creamy. Let's come over here, and this is literally here. I made this yesterday. This is 1-to-1, And as it cooks, it starts to break down. Now, at this point, we have a couple decisions of what we want to do. I actually cream some of this. It depends on how creamy do you like your red beans. Do you want it to be a little more loose with big chunks of beans? That's fine. Or me, I kind of like them creamy, but I've seen some red beans you almost can't even see a bean in it. It's all just, they're all completely disintegrated and all become creamy. I think those can be great as well, but I kind of like a mixture. I like to be right in the middle of that. I like to see these nice chunks of beans, but at the same time, I want it to be a little creamy. So when we start getting to the end, after fast forward 2.5 hours, and this is cooked, now what's going to happen is it's going to thicken, and you can really kind of stir and take the back of a spoon and kind of start to push some of those beans up against a pot. That's the method we use to kind of cream out the beans. As we kind of push them, it's going to start to break down and kind of crush some of those beans, and that will help thicken up all that liquid you got in there. Also, as we're cooking, in the early stages, the first hour or so, if you see the water level starting to drop, well, you might have your temperature up too high, and a lot of water is rapidly evaporating out of it. So if you taste the bean and it still feels crunchy, but you're almost out of liquid, add some more water and let it keep cooking. Just add a little more water and let it keep cooking. Now, to finish it off, what I like to do, and I think it's important with these red beans, is I wait to season it all the way at the end. I like to go ahead at this point and take a spoon and taste it, no seasoning added. This is critical because depending on what meat you decided to use in your beans, is often you're going to get so much flavor out of those meats. You're also, if you use something like a spicy sausage or a mild sausage, it's going to completely change how this tastes. So before you even think about adding hot sauce or salt or pepper, taste your beans unseasoned first. Take a little spoon, taste them, and because you might find that they already might have some salt and they might already have a good bit of spice. If you used a spicy sausage, your beans might already be spicy and be like, oh, I'm getting great heat. I don't need to add hot sauce to it because that's going to make it too spicy. So that's a tip right there. But at the end, you taste them and say, okay, I'm add a little bit of salt. I'm getting a lot of smoky flavor, but I am going to add just some pepper. I do want to kick it up with just a little more hot sauce, a couple dashes, and we can just finish it off just like that. After we season it, I like to always come in. I love adding some green onions and some parsley right at the end. Always add these at the end because if we were to add this at the beginning, they would just disintegrate. These delicate herbs cook all the way down and you wouldn't see anything. And now, man, you can't beat it. Good old red beans and rice. Let's go ahead and dish some of these up. Got us a plate. Question I'm gonna pose to you guys. Do you put the rice on the bottom or the top? Sometimes in the restaurant, we serve the red beans in a bowl and we put the red beans down first, then we top it off like a gumbo with our beans. But often on a plate, I like to just smother that rice with all those red beans. And I like a lot of sausage and a lot of meat with my red beans. So we're gonna put that on top. Come back with a little bit of green onions that we saved, a little bit of this parsley that we saved over. And this is how we would serve it at the restaurant. And we'll be serving this at the restaurant. If you're local and you're in town this Friday and Saturday for lunch, we'll be serving red beans and rice. Since we cooked them, we'll be serving that this weekend. If not, let me know how it came out for you at home. Would love to see how it worked for y'all. With that said, we love having y'all come in and check us out here at Houmas House. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.